It's important to keep an awareness of your relationships that you have. With every relationship, there is a push and a pull, a yin and a yang, a give and a take. And if you are not aware of this interaction, then things can easily get out of hand. Say you and your spouse are living in a house together and you're not doing any chores and they're constantly cleaning and you just completely blank out and you don't do any of these things. There will be a problem. If you do not gain awareness on the situation, then you're going to have some issues in your life. So, how do you gain awareness in these types of relationships? When you are encountering a relationship of any sort, you observe it. You don't look at it from your lens, right? This is a lens, that is a lens. You don't look at it through your lens. You look at it through a different lens, if you will. Maybe third person, or you just try to observe without putting your bias into the interaction, and you can really see what goes on. And people that you are in relationships with will start to appreciate this and notice that you are putting time and you are putting energy, really. Time, you don't even need to put excess time, because this will just happen automatically once you do it enough. But they will notice, and they will become aware that you are putting time and that you are trying to be aware in the relationship. So even if you still aren't giving all the way, or you're taking too much, you are putting in your effort, you're putting in your awareness, you are making an attempt to notice what is happening. And if you do that, then you can't really do much better. You can start to try to improve your actions over time, but this takes time. What happens when a relationship gets out of balance, when both ends are not putting awareness into the relationship? This just tends to go in a couple of ways. The first one is it falls apart, right? There's no awareness on either side, then you just forget about it. It fades away, it goes into the past, and there's a memory of it, but there's no current awareness of it. Another thing is it could just be an interaction that you have every day. Say every day you interact with someone and you have a unpleasant interaction, even if it may just be for a couple of moments. The person that greets you as you walk into work, you have an interaction with him and it's an unpleasant interaction. Even this small of a relationship, it can be an unpleasant interaction. Simple as that. You guys just tend not to like each other. You don't know why. You know that when you walk into work and that person is there, you're like, oh man. Another thing is that it's just constant fighting. It's just like no one's putting awareness, but you still have to interact. So there's just constant bicker. There's a constant clash of two sides that aren't observing the other end of the side, and it gets out of balance. So that's another issue that can arise. Another thing is if you're showing awareness and the other person is putting no awareness into the relationship, then that is something to be aware of. A lot of awareness, I know. Because things can easily get out of balance, right? If you're putting a lot of effort and a lot of energy into a certain encounter, it will show. And if another person isn't, then you sort of see their intentions. And that's another important part of showing awareness, is you have an intention. You have an intention to make the relationship, whatever it may be, work. You have a lot of interactions, a lot of beings, a lot of individuals that you interact with every day. And you can either have the intention to just do what you need to do, or you can have the intention to work with everything. Everyone has their incentives, everyone has their agendas. It's not wrong to have these, but if you do not have an awareness of everyone else's incentives or agendas, then you could just get lost in your own tunnel vision of what you think is happening. If you want X, Y, Z to happen in that order, but the world or the universe isn't supplying that to you, you have to work with these other types of relationships. It could be something as simple as just traffic making you run late to a meeting that you booked out. Your time is all booked out and you run late to a meeting because of traffic. What's your relationship with that? What's your relationship with the people on the road that are also in traffic? It's just something to think about. In my opinion, the most important place to shed awareness is in your close relationships, the people that you are interacting with every day, every other day, or a week. You know, these relationships are who you're spending the most time around. You will get the most out of being aware of these relationships. If you have an unpleasant interaction with someone that's living in your house, that's going to affect you every day until something changes. And let me tell you, it could be a while until something changes. Maybe even you moving out of the house. That could be the change. So these unnoticed issues can linger. They can linger for a long time if you don't look at them. If you don't look at them. So what do you do once you've looked at them? Once you've looked at a situation, then you have an understanding of it outside of your limited perspective. You now have a different perspective. And whether you have thoroughly engaged and really got into the depth of the interaction that you have or not, it doesn't quite matter. All that matters is now you approach this interaction with a new perspective, a different perspective that you have learned from being aware of the past, of what has happened in the past that hasn't worked. And with this process, without spending any extra time in your day, all you have to do is just be aware of the interaction as it takes place. You don't have to spend time sitting down. I mean, you can, but you don't have to spend a specific time just focusing on a certain interaction. All you have to do is just be aware of the action as it takes place. And then as it's about to repeat itself, because things tend to loop, be aware of it again. And just this is all you have to do to change an interaction. And I cannot stress this enough. This is all you have to do. Notice it. Notice it. Notice it. Keep noticing it. And yeah, it might keep looping. But you will also notice that your internal reactions are changing. The way that you're viewing this interaction every time. You may be angry, and then it keeps looping. This is something that keeps happening in your life. It keeps happening. And you start to get less angry. You start to realize, you start to get thoughtful. Maybe an interaction, now you're just curious, and you're like, And then maybe towards the end, maybe after it's looped like 20 times or something like that, now you're showing sympathy as opposed to being angry at the person. So things can really vary in this regard, that you really have to examine the situation. It's so easy to get caught in our perspective. It is so easy. And this is another thing that I cannot stress enough. And even though I'm not stressing, it's easy to get lost in your perspective. There are very few people that are aware of their perspective constantly. Very few people. I would say that I'm not even one of them. I attempt on a day-to-day basis to be aware of where I'm coming from, but just like everyone else, I can get lost in my thought train. I can get lost in the direction that I'm headed. And yeah, it can lead to lots of events that I would call unforeseen. I didn't really want them to happen. You learn from them. Granted, it's not like it's a bad event. It's just an anomaly. When you really start to do this a lot, you notice that there are not a lot of anomalies in your life. A lot of things, a lot of issues are repetitive. They all have already happened to you in the past, and they happen to you again, and they're just slightly different. So the chance that you run into an anomaly is very low, and it can show a lot about your day-to-day interaction. And when you do run into an anomaly, then you have an awareness of this interaction. You're like, whoa, something new, and you are aware while it's happening. This is how there's people that have never fought someone in their life, and they defend someone's life in like a terrorist situation, or they've never pulled the emergency brake before, but they're sitting in the passenger seat and they just yank it because they see that you're about to get in a car accident. They have the awareness and they know what to do in that situation. This is not to say that you should try to be aware constantly and be paranoid and stressed. This is a big difference. It's merely just the sense of presence that you are exhibiting, I would say. That's all I'm talking about. If you increase this presence in each of your relationships, you will notice a noticeable change. And that's why I've made this video. I think that I see a lot of people looping in their relationships, me too. And I think it's important to become aware of the loops that we are living. You know, life is constantly changing, but there's some patterns to it, and you can use your mind to some extent to learn from them. So I hope everyone has a good day, and thank you for watching.